Okay, guys, I think I have it figured out now. I think I finally figured out what was going on. Sorry about that. It's me, it's the M, the X, and the C. It's Mr. Xavier Carrigan coming to you live from beautiful Tempe, Arizona with the Cognitive Liberation Front. That's right, that's right. For those of you who might be first-time listeners, I hope you enjoy the show. We're going to have some interesting topics that we're going to be talking about today. I hope you are as excited as I am that the show is finally back after over 3 months. It's been 3 months. Wow, 3 months since it's been gone. Sorry, I don't usually have a tire like this when I do these shows. I'm not trying to espouse any one team. Go Blue. But yeah, I had the shirt on. I just was trying to quickly get things taken care of. So, um, sorry about not starting on time. The only reason why I didn't start on time today was because my computer needed to reboot, and it was a Windows update. That took some time. At first, I was experiencing some technical difficulties. There was no sound, but there is sound now. There's definitely some sound now. So, yeah. So now I can actually see my live stream. That's good. And I can now see, I can see everything. We're good. We're good to go. We're ready to rock. Let's do this. So, I got some interesting things to talk about today. Interesting mostly in the aspect of um, issues, or I don't know how I want to put this, but like there are things that I want to discuss, things I want to talk about. And so, sorry, I'm actually going to look at my phone because my friend in Austria, Mary, thank you so much. I think maybe, well, I'm going to be asking you. See if you're on the feed. Like, hold on, there. Yep, there I am. Right on. What is this? Grafen, Grafen von, Grafen von Hohenmed. Okay. Mary, you're gonna have to teach me some German. Right on. We're gonna be talking about that later, Mary and I individually. So I definitely want to start boning up on that. All right. So what are we talking about today? What are we talking about today? Here we go. So once again, I got the trusty whiteboard to keep myself on track because you know me, I like to trickle off into nothing. So here we go. So welcome to the Cognitive Liberation Front. Today, June 18th, 2017, episode number 6. That's right, episode number 6. Today, what we're going to be talking about, sorry, I have to be able to see the screen and do this at the same time, so I apologize. All right, here we go. So today, we're going to be talking about 3 different things. The lack of consequences. Now, I know some of this, all of this is not news. There will be news interlaced. I'm kind of changing things up just a tiny bit on how I run the show. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see what the feedback is. So, but anyways, here we go. The 3 topics are lack of consequences, critical thinking, and how monopoly ends. Yeah, how monopoly ends. That's really a thing I'm going to be talking about today. So, don't forget, check us out online. Sorry, I'm kind of also looking on the screen there. Check us out, www.theclf.net, not .com, .net, www.theclf.net, and of course, facebook.com/MXC the CLF. All right, shameless plugs out of the way. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about today are the lack of consequences and what does that mean? In particular, over the last few months, I've really given a lot of deep thought, a lot of introspection on how society is with the lack of consequences. And there's something in particular I'm going to go off on. Hold on. The thimble in the library with the candlestick killed the dog. Nice. The thimble in the library with a candlestick killed the dog. All right. I don't have a lisp. Sorry. I'm not making fun of people with lisps. I'm making fun of me. Anyways, so the lack of consequences, what do I mean? I'm talking more, not so much with individuals, not so much with the regular Joe, although that does come into play, and I think it boils down to a monkey see, monkey do type of scenario. So what do I mean by the lack of consequences? So this isn't about, unfortunately, I love Michigan, but it's not about Michigan today. So I'm just going to move the camera up. So anyways, the lack of consequences. What stemmed this thought? What brought this thought about? I watched that movie. I knew I was going to forget as soon as I got on the show, and I did. There was that movie that came out, which showed what kind of happened during the housing collapse. If you're able to remember the show, throw it into the live chat so that way I can see it. I just can't think of it at the moment. actually, you know what? I can just Google search it right now. Movie about housing crash, and it is The Big Short. That's right. I've probably watched The Big Short now, I want to say 7 or 8 times. Now, why do I keep watching it? Not because of the phenomenal acting in it. The acting was good, but that wasn't the reason why I keep watching it. I keep watching it because I want to find out why, or I want to see if there's anything that may have been missed. Not because the movie exposes it, but because it provokes different thoughts. And so, and I think a lot of people already think this. We briefly talk about it, then we're quickly dissuaded from it. So let me get to it. Those who would create situations. What do I mean by situations? I'm talking the housing collapse. I'm talking the endless wars. I am talking about how would I want to put this? Let's just stay on the bankers at the moment, because I'll get to other things in a little bit. And also with politics and politicians. But the lack of consequences. Those of you who even paid half a bit of attention, even a quarter of a bit of attention during the housing collapse and when we did the recovery, we all know anyone who was guilty of causing that collapse, nobody. Only, according to the movie, only one person went to jail. Knowing what they knew. Not necessarily the ones who bet against the housing, who bet against the housing system and made a lot of money by shorting it. Not them, but the ones who continued to play the system and push the system, knowing that it was not just a house of cards. It was a house of cards sitting on a toothpick, and the littlest breeze was going to knock it over. And then, of course, the collapse occurred. Out of all those people, no consequences came from it, none whatsoever. So why do I bring this up? Because now we live in a society where the lack of consequences is now accepted as the norm. It's now accepted as commonplace. Oh, you messed up. Well, that's okay. We're not going to punish you, but just don't do it again, please. Now, does this apply to everybody? No, not even close. No, not even a little bit. This does not apply to everybody, because those who are in the working class, the poor, the lower class, they have to deal with the consequences all the time. I haven't had to deal with any consequences as of late, but if I get a ticket, if my friend gets a ticket, they have to pay that ticket. I know people who are affluent, who have money. If they get a ticket, they can get out of it. There are no consequences. This is very minuscule, very tiny compared to the overarching problem. It's an example, a very simplistic example, because we now have a system in place because of the housing collapse. Well, actually, even before that, but the housing collapse kind of set it in stone. It it poured concrete over it, so it's not going to change unless we break that concrete, we break that system. And that system has now become, and I'm going to cite the Young Turks because Cenk Uygur, the founder and main host of the Young Turks, he says it best. We privatize the gains and we socialize the losses. That is our system now. We have an entire system. We have a banking and financial institution that knows if they mess up, the people will bail them out. Not even willingly. The people will bail them out because our politicians will say it's okay. Our politicians will say, hey, not a problem, we'll vote to bail you out. Why are they voting to bail them out? Key bono. Who benefits? Well, the politicians benefit from the corporations and from the Wall Street junkies who cause these problems to begin with because they get their major donations from there, get money out of politics. But the politicians benefit from there. The corporations, they benefit because there's no risk involved. Now, the last I checked, the last I heard, when it comes to risk and payoff, the higher the risk, the greater the payoff. There's no risk for financial institutions anymore. We're going to bail them out. So they can jump off of whatever cliff they want. They know they got that golden parachute. I know golden parachute refers to the retirement part of it, but they have that golden parachute of, well, the American taxpayers will bail them out. The American taxpayers are going to be the ones who feel the brunt of the financial costs of whatever risk they decide to take. And why is this happening? Why has this occurred? Because we had an entire mainstream media that pushed the narrative, that pushed the notion, the idea that it's our responsibility to make sure these banks can still run, they can still function, because without them, we would fall apart. Newsflash. If you allow those banks, if you allow those systems, if you allow Wall Street to die, are we going to go through a spat of misery? Oh, yes, yes, we are. But no change comes easy. No great change, no good change comes easy. Change is hard. Change is difficult. Change is painful. If we are to get away from the current system that we are in, from this system of rewarding those who do the worst of the worst, rewarding those who commit awful deeds, rewarding those who take risk with no potential drawbacks. We keep this going. It's going to catch up with us in the worst possible way. I'd say it already has, but I think that it's going to be far worse in other ways. So, and it's not just the bankers. Another thing that brought up this thought, now I'm going to really buck the tiger here on this one with some people. The lack of consequences when it comes to athletes. We had an athlete who kneeled during the national anthem. And that guy, to this day, still pays the consequences. To this day, is still shunned. To this day, is still cast asunder by an entire subculture, sports fanatics. Colin Kaepernick simply knelt during the national anthem as a sign of protest. He wasn't kneeling to disrespect the flag. He was kneeling to bring attention to an issue. Did it bring attention to the issue? It did, but not in the fashion that I'm sure he was hoping, and then, be quite honest, I was hoping. And that is, people who are black are getting shot at a ridiculous rate. After seeing the trial results of what was his name? Excuse me. Philando Castile. The officer was found not guilty. Now, are there circumstances where the officer probably wasn't guilty? I think that maybe if Castile went for his gun, but the officer, you are at a highly advantageous position. Castile is in the car with his family, with his, I believe it was his daughter or his girlfriend's daughter. There was a 4-year-old in the back. Regardless if he was high, the fact that he was high is, to me, beside the point. The officer told him, get out your wallet, get out your ID. Castile told him, look, dude, I do have a gun on me. I am legally allowed to carry it. I am going for my wallet. Reaches for his wallet, gets shot. Now, I haven't seen dash cam video. I haven't seen that yet. So, but the way that it seemed to have played out, I want to see the video. Personally, I want to see the video so that way I can make a fully educated decision on the way I feel that court case turned out. However, I don't know if we'll ever see it. If anyone has a link to it, I'd be more than happy to see it. I would be very happy to see that link. So, but I got off track. I wanted to go to athletes because Colin Kaepernick, the reason why he kneeled, or the reason why he knelt during the national anthem was to protest situations just like Philando Castile. The guy who got choked out for the cigarettes, the guy who got shot in the back while he was running away from the cops. He was running away. The video shows it clear as day. There is no question in anyone's mind. That guy was holding on to his pants to keep his pants up. He's running away from the cop, and the cop shoots him in the back. I can't tell you how many Westerns I would have seen in my entire life that would have sat there and said, it is absurd, it is ridiculous if you were to ever shoot a man in the back. Why do I bring up Westerns? Because the Lord knows how many my friends who love Westerns, like, you never shoot a man in the back. That's just disrespectful. That cop shot a guy in the back running away from him. Dude, you have all the power in the world. You have all the power in your hands. It's called a gun. What happened to that cop? Nothing. Acquitted. Nothing. Found not guilty. Philando Castile's officer found not guilty. No consequences. So what happens? Now, for those of my friends and those of you who watch this video who are very staunch supporters of police officers, I'm a staunch supporter of police officers. I have friends who are police officers. I hear the stories about what they have to deal with day to day. But that's your job. We are trusting you with a level of authority, a level of responsibility. We are hoping that in any situation you're going to make the best possible choice. And if you're too timid, if you're too meek, if you're too scared to do the job, don't do the job. Go sit at a desk. Don't be in the field. There needs to be better training for the police. There needs to be better training for the police to deal with those kinds of situations. Can't keep killing each other. Or, more so, There has to be consequences for the police when this happens. Let me get back to the sports, the athletes. People protest. We're up in arms. We're burning jerseys, calling for the death. Hey, this dude's an athlete. I saw posts where people are like, we need to kill Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the anthem, or kick him out of the country for kneeling during the anthem. But you have other athletes who have committed domestic violence. You have other athletes who have committed robbery, theft, assault. We have had other athletes who have committed murder, who have committed rape. Where is the outcry when those guys do that? Oh, yes, that's right. There is no outcry. Rather, oh, well, we need to just forgive, and, it's really hard being a professional athlete, and it's really difficult to deal with those stresses, so, we're just going to let that slide. Who was that one guy? It wasn't Rampage. It wasn't Rampage. Who was that guy, the cage fighter, who recently beat his girlfriend, beat her, I don't even want to say beat her silly, but that right there, beat her silly, is kind of touching on it. Beat her to the point of absurdity. Like, let me find out who it was. MMA fighter who beat his girlfriend. War Machine. That's who it is. By the way, the guy actually had his name legally changed to War Machine. As ridiculous as that is, War Machine. Yes, that's his real name now. The good news is he got a life sentence. But NFL athletes who have committed rape or murder. I'm just pulling this up real quick. And I'm going to be sharing the link in the chat. And I'll also share the link in the description afterwards. Let's see here. I don't know if this is a really good website to use this from. Sorry guys, I'm usually better prepared for stuff like this. I apologize. Here we go. This is a good link. All right, so, sorry about that. And where's the space for the comments? There it is. So there's a link for those of you who are watching. If you want to check out the link that I just found, it's a link from the USA Today. It's a database of all of the athletes in the NFL who have ever been arrested for DUI, assault, battery, domestic violence, hit and run, sexual battery, possessing a gun. I'm sure there's some situations where that's not, in certain states, you're not allowed to have it. I'm all about a person being able to own a gun, but you got to follow the rules. That's really important. Sorry, I thought somebody might have been trying to communicate with me about what's going on here. So yeah, I mean, by all means, take a look at the list. You're going to be looking for a very, very, very long time. I'm scrolling down still, and it looks like the database, looks like the first one was in January 24th of 2000. Rod Smith from Denver, a wide receiver, arrested for domestic violence. Pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor count of verbal abuse, 2 years probation and counseling, but he was accused of choking, beating, and shoving his common-law wife at his house near Denver. So it's a drop in the bucket. All of these athletes, many of them, numerous popular names, did not face any consequences. Any consequences. That's the problem. It's the lack of consequences. And even those who would sit there and possibly argue, well, they're just athletes. What they do outside doesn't pertain to anything. Well, what about role models? What about role models, man? What about when I was younger, I looked up to Walter Payton. I looked up to Refrigerator Perry, although his dieting skills were not the best. I kind of followed in his footsteps a little too closely, but that's beside the point. I followed people like Richard Dent. If you can't tell, I was a Chicago Bears fan, a big one, right? So those were people I looked up to. I had a college athlete I looked up to more than anyone else, Clint Frazier, who wore the number 99. And when I played lacrosse, he was a reason why I wore the number 99 when I played lacrosse, because I respected the man. It's not just the business people, and it's not just the athletes. It's also the politicians, including the jackass in chief that we have right now. The man-child, as others have so appropriately put it. There are no consequences that these people face, and that's what has to change, in my opinion. There has to be consequences. I'm not saying that they have to be brutal, but there has to be something. Something has to be done. There has to be some point where we have to say, enough's enough. If you continue to do this, we are going to have to put a stop to it and punish you. Donald Trump, even before he was president, didn't pay his bills and would pride himself on not paying his bills. He prided himself on being a failure. And what do I mean? By going bankrupt. He prides himself on it. And he thinks he's going to find these loopholes on the national level, politically, and even worse on the international level. The Prime Minister of Australia just got done making fun of our president. The Prime Minister of Australia just got done making fun of our president. Let that sink in. When I watched that video of Trump pushing other national leaders out of the way, God, where was that guy from? He just shoves him. As if though no other nation mattered. That's not good. It doesn't represent us well. It doesn't bode well for the United States. And it's not just Trump. It's also Obama. It's also Bush Jr. It's also Clinton. It's also Bush Sr. It's their cabinet members. It's Dick Cheney. It's God, what the heck is his name? Dick Cheney. He was Secretary of State under Bush Jr. I can see his face with the glasses. What are you saying over here, Mary? But it's also, I also know some normal people, as you mentioned before, who know the right people and can get out. That's right, Mary. That's 100% right. You know, I'm sorry I didn't see your comment over there. I just saw it just now. Yeah, there are people, like I said, even I know people who can get out of a ticket no matter when or with who it's with because they know the right people. I had, back in the days of when I was a DJ, I had some people try to get me out of situations where I needed to face the consequences, and I refused to take it because I messed up. Pleading the fifth on this one, I'm not going to say exactly what these things were, but at the same time, there were some things that I did. People were just like, well, don't worry, we're going to shove this under the rug. And I'm like, no, we can't shove it under the rug. One, I know that I did it. I can't live with that. Obviously, some of these people who don't face the consequences, obviously they have no filter, or they're sociopathic, or there's just nothing there that tells them, to give them a guilty conscience. I do. I have a horrible guilty conscience. If I do something wrong, I feel awful for it, and I face the consequences. I deal with the consequences, because the further we kick that can down the road, the worse it will be. It'll be atrocious. I will revisit this topic at a later date. I need to move on because I've been rambling on about this for a half an hour. By the way, I also forgot to post that I'm live right now. So let's do this. Oops, not a comma. Dot. Let's do that. Let's go to my channel. I totally forgot to post that I am going live right now, and I would love to. I wish it would give me a link that I could just post whenever I'm live. Live with the Cognitive Liberation Front now. Come by and have a listen, or check the video later after live streaming, with a little smiley face. My patented smiley face. Alright, copy, post, because remember, I got posted in 2 places. There's one. Let me pop it. Oh, I gotta. When you reboot the computer and it closes out everything, well, I always have an incognito window open, and so I thought I had it open, and well, I guess I didn't. All right, let's get this one posted too. And, oh, come on. Yep. Post for me, baby. Shazam. There it is. All right, so hopefully, for lucky, well, more than lucky, always more than lucky, we got a couple more viewers on here, more people join the conversation. All right, so yeah, lack of consequence, big deal to me. And until we change that, until we let our politicians, our athletes, our business people, our Wall Street junkies know that there are consequences for your actions, until they know that, we will continue to suffer through the exact same thing again and again and again. You want it to change? Got to do something about it, guys. We have to do something about it. Okay, moving on. Critical thinking. Now, why did I bring that up as a topic? Because I feel from what I witness from other people, I'm trying to think of how I want to articulate this. What I've witnessed from other citizens, I guess, other Americans, other my neighbors, my friends, my acquaintances, people I see on the streets or talk to at the clubs, or I don't go to clubs, maybe the gym club, but it seems that critical thinking is not praised anymore. It's not espoused is not a word. It's not held to a high regard. And critical thinking should be held to a high regard. So why do I want to bring it up? Because for the longest time, and what I mean by the longest time, I'm talking about in the span of the last, I would say, 2 decades or so, schools, more and more and more, were pushing this idea of just do as we say. Now, I know I'll catch some some flack from millennials saying, no, it's not how it is. You just don't understand. I know I'll catch some flack from um, Generation X or whoever who's older than me or even my age, um, who will say, yeah, that's right. It's exactly right. Those kids just don't know how to think. Now, hold on just a second. Because I'm not trying to put down millennials. It's not my goal. It's not what I'm trying to do. Rather, millennials were, I don't want to say victims. I don't like making anyone into a victim because then they think they can play a victim card. But millennials were impacted by Generation X, were impacted by, I don't know, the kids from the 60s and 70s, the kids from the 50s. I don't know how, or however you want to label your generation. They were impacted by those people who were older than them who made the decision to push for testing and to eliminate critical thinking. It doesn't matter what you think, just reproduce what we say. It's coming back to bite you in the ass. That mindset, teaching those kids that mindset is now coming back to bite all of us in the ass. Boy, does it hurt. Because think about what's going on today in social media. Think about what's going on today with this whole premonition of fake news, of alternative facts. Everyone wants their reality to just be the truth. They want their reality to be the one everyone else has to accept. When in the process of it all, this is the worst part. In the process of it all, the facts, the actual facts get lost. Case in point, global warming. I live in Arizona. I live in Phoenix Metro. And we are staring down the barrel of the hottest temperatures on record for the area. It is something even more ridiculous than that. I should remember to bring it up. Hopefully I will. We're staring down the barrel of the hottest temperatures on record. Now, today, let me see. I'm going to pull up the temperature right now. Currently here, where I am in Tempe, it is 111 degrees. It is currently 4:57. It's pushing towards the evening. It was up to, I believe, my car at one point said 113. No, don't. What are you doing? I just want the time. That's fine. So at one point my car said 113. I believe I heard on the radio 115 today. But we're at the easy end of this. Now, mind you, the one teens, this is how we say it here, the one teens were not expected. They were not anticipated to occur. They usually don't occur until July or August. We're still in June. On Tuesday, we are looking at setting a record high 120 degrees for this time of year. Now, from what I've heard, the record high all time happened last year. The record high happened last year. Global warming's a myth. The record high happened last year at 122 degrees, and that was in, I want to say it was in July. Let me take a look. Record high in Phoenix, Arizona. Ten hottest all-time days. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I rescind. Now, I could have sworn this has to be off, though. When was this published? Because I know published 2011. Oh, last updated in 2017. I could have swore last year we hit 122 last year. And it's saying that it was updated today? Because last year, I'm pretty sure we hit 122. Oh, let's see. Let's go to this source. Let's check this one. Yeah, I was pretty sure last year. I don't need an advertisement.
I do the Pikes Peak Marathon every year. And
I also don't need a video. Thank you. Okay, don't go to AZ Central because, oh my friggin' advertisements. Yeah, I could have swore last year it hit 122. Last year. Let's see. All right, let me check here. Record high in Phoenix. Oh, hottest day in Phoenix, 2016. Okay, 2016 was the third hottest year for Phoenix. Third hottest year. Okay, so I could have sworn like last year I was here. I was personally here. I could have sworn. God, I don't need all the advertisements. I could have sworn this that last year it hit 122. I was here and it happened. Okay, so anyways, obviously I was wrong. I am off on that, so I apologize. It's not any intention of mine to mislead. So, okay, so that being said, the hottest temperature supposedly on record is 100. Or I'm sorry, is 122 back in 1990, I believe. But we're looking at breaking that this week. But we still run into the issue where people are like, well, global warming just isn't a thing. We don't need to worry about what we're doing. But every year, the weather gets worse. Every single year, the weather gets worse. Around the world, hottest year on record, 2016. Hottest January on record, 2017. The hottest February on record, 2017. Across the board, every single month around the world, the hottest temperature to date has always been the most recent. It's getting hotter. 97% of scientists in the world agree. So what does this have to do with critical thinking? Because so many of us, and I definitely fell into that trap back in 2000, I would say between the window of 2004 and 2008, 2004, 2009, somewhere in that window. Like I was believing everything I could read, and I didn't look at the sources. I wasn't looking to see where it was coming from. I didn't check to see if there was a key bono, who benefits. And now it's so important for me to check to see where that information is coming from. The hottest January skipped Bavaria, record cold temperatures there, and I was out in them. It was crazy cold. That's right. Global warming is not just the temperatures going up. It's also the extreme colds. Record cold temperatures in Italy during the same time was also there. It was crazy. Yeah, so, and this is where the critical thinking comes into play, guys, because it's not just about the temperatures shooting up. It's also in different parts of the world that temperatures plummeting. We are having ridiculous, good word, fluctuation. Fluctuation that is not typical. We're having weather patterns occur in areas where they typically don't occur. As this continues to get worse, you will still have those who are just like, well, my source says this, my source says that. I have somebody on my friends list who's extreme left wing. He just pumps out whatever he can find. He just cranks out every little bit of left-wing propaganda that he can. And I'm sitting there and I'm face palming it because I'm like, dude, you got to look at your sources. When you find something that's extremely anti-Trump and it says far white or far left-leaning liberal Tribune.com, that should throw up a red flag. More importantly, you need to look at where they're getting their information. And a lot of times these websites, they don't cite it. They don't cite where they're getting their information. They're just like, oh, well, we just heard. Or even worse, the cherry picking that goes on. So, one thing I wanted to touch on, because I found it ironic today, right before I went to the gym, I was listening to this radio show, and this duo, I don't know who it was, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because I can't even think of who it was. But they made the comment, they're just like, oh, it's going to be so hot in Arizona, the hottest in the world. Hottest in the world? What are we going to do? Like, planes can't even take off, and when does the pavement actually melt? Well, if you want to find out when the pavement melts, ask Iran. Hottest temperature, I'm pretty sure it was in the 170s. The hottest temperature ever recorded. What's this, Mary? I'm not an expert on this at all, but I study history constantly, and this type of weather fluctuation happens regularly throughout history. You're right, Mary, there are weather patterns that happen. The fluctuation does occur. However, recent weather fluctuations now compared to all time. Hold on a second, Mary. I got something for you. And I think that this is a pretty reliable source here. So enjoy that one, Mary. So yeah. Does the weather fluctuate? Has that shown throughout time? Yeah, it does. Weather certainly does. And on a millennial scale, on multiple millennia scale, do we see an up and down pattern? Have we seen that through our research? Yes, of course, we've seen it. But not to the extremes that we see now. The extremes that we see now, they're unheard of, and that's the problem. And this brings back to the point, critical thinking, not just looking at the surface, not just finding a source that agrees with what you want to agree with. It doesn't just say what you want it to say. You've got to dig deeper. You've got to look deeper. And global warming is just one of the many things. I intentionally listen, and it's the hardest part of my day. Every day I get out of work, I listen to this guy, super conservative radio. But why do I do that? Because I'm super progressive. This guy, he says things I don't want to hear. But I listen to it because, one, I pick it apart in my mind. I pick it apart. But two, I need to know what the other side is saying. Because this guy cherry picks. God, he cherry picks every little thing that he can. And when I say cherry pick, like, he even peels the skin off. He only gets the sweetest part. He dumps out the seed and the stem. This dude, like, he only gets that one little thing that he's looking for. So, I think that society has reached a point where we no longer take on the responsibility of critical thinking. We don't teach it in schools. We don't profess it in schools. Even when I was still teaching, I guess I am still teaching, I'm part-time right now, but when I had regular classes, I would push my students into critical thinking. I would make them have to come up with ideas, with original thoughts, with new ways of approaching things. And I would make them, I'm like, you have to support what you're saying. You cannot just have conjecture. You cannot just say whatever it is that you want. Thank you, Mary. Yes, I do. And it's sometimes a real struggle because when I'm listening to them, it's because sometimes I listen to extreme leftists and sometimes I'm like, wow, what are you doing? So it's when I listen to the progressives that I'm really more into my niche. That's where that's where I find myself. I'm like, of course, I agree with this. I agree with this. I agree with this. But it doesn't stop me from going and trying to find out what the others say, what, God forbid, Rush Limbaugh says, what Alex Jones says, what Democracy Now! Well, Democracy Now! Is a little bit extreme left leaning. Um, what the Young Turks say. You know, if you want to know somebody that I listen to regularly who espouses my views on a regular basis, and I hated this guy for like a really short time simply because he exploded at something that I think he went too far. But I'd given him a second chance a long time ago, and ever since then, I watch his show all the time. His name is Jimmy Dore. If you get a chance, check out the Jimmy Dore show. I personally, big thumbs up, Jimmy. Keep doing what you're doing. I hope one day I get a chance to talk with you and rant and rave with Jimmy and the miserable liberal Steph Semerano and what's the other guy's name? Um, damn it, I'm sorry. It's the red-headed guy. He's gonna hate me for that. But anyways, I hope one day I get to actually sit down and have a real good conversation with him. Jordan Charrington, another big name that I like to watch because these people go out and they're just like, what are the facts? And then from there we'll make our decision. From there we're going to look at what needs to be done next. Is there some passion in there, some emotional content? Of course there is. And I try to look past that and see what they're really just talking about. So needless to say, guys, when it comes to critical thinking, you really have to look at all sides. You really have to look at all sides. All right, I'll be back right after this swig of water. I really need some water, guys. I'm sorry. Now we're back. I don't even know. I'm looking at myself right now. Okay, yeah, I did manage to get off camera. That's good. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about. This one isn't going to take so long. But the last thing I want to talk about is how Monopoly ends. What brought this thought up was a video in particular. And I'm going to post the link for the video. Now, the video itself is it's almost 30 minutes long. It's a show called Redacted Tonight. And if you've never seen Redacted Tonight, I strongly suggest that you do. It's with Lee Camp. I know some people will be up in arms, oh, it's on RT, but Redacted Tonight is run by Lee Camp, who is also a progressive. And he brought up something, and as soon as I thought about it, I was like, I should write this down. I should write this down. I should write this down. And I almost forgot about it, and I ran over to my board and I wrote it down. And it's because what he says in this video. Now, this video, he talks about a few different things. One in particular is about how America is being sold off. But the big thing was the richest 5 men own half the world. I want you to think about that for a second. The richest 5 men, you put their wealth together, 5 people own or have as much wealth as 3.8 billion people. 5 people have the same amount of wealth as 3.8 billion. So why did I bring up how Monopoly ends? So those of you who have seen or played the game Monopoly, how does it end? How does Monopoly, and how do you finish the game? Now, a lot of people, they just don't have the patience. I know a lot of people, it's like, oh, okay, whatever, you win, you have most of the stuff. How does the game actually end? The game ends, and here, let me bring up Monopoly rules. The goal of the game of Monopoly is to bankrupt all of your opponents. The goal of the game of Monopoly is to bankrupt all of your opponents. That's the whole purpose, is to make sure nobody else has anything and you have everything. Let that sink in. That's the game. That's the game that you play. Just make sure no one else can afford anything. Keeping that in mind, 5 people own as much money as half the world. I'm sorry, I have a long pause there because I have so many thoughts racing through my head, but all of it goes back to the same thing, and that is the tragedy of monopoly. And then I think about what's going on in our world, what's going on in our society, in our interactions with other societies. I laugh about it because there's nothing else I can do at the moment. We live in a world where it seems everyone is stepping on everyone else's head to become the rich person. Now, recently, I've really been looking at, well, one, I've been looking at getting into politics. I'm working on that right now because I don't want to run away from the problem called the United States, because the United States is a big problem right now, and not just to ourselves, but to the rest of the world. However, given the situation that I feel that it's futile, personally, I kind of want to go to Europe. Why? Because it seems so many European countries now, they're looking at everything America does, and a lot of Americans would tell you that too. Excuse me, they'd say, huh, look at those Americans, look what they're doing. And then the Americans would be like, that's right, the world's watching us because, we're number one. No, they're watching us to know what we shouldn't do now. I just want to go to concerts and travel. Yeah, right on. I don't know about the concerts. I like concerts every once in a while, but travel, God, yeah, that's nice. Seeing different places, learning from different people, hell yeah. But there's a lot of countries, they look at America and they go, what is America doing? We shouldn't do that because it doesn't work. For me personally, I don't, I used to, about 10, 15 years ago, I used to be about, I don't want to pay taxes. It's stealing money from me and I don't see anything for it. And I wish that we didn't have to pay taxes. And I was a fervent supporter of anything anti-taxes. And then the reality check came and I had to cash it. I don't know. That was a horrible pun, but the reality check came in and I had to deal with it. And that is, so many of the things that we take for granted, so many of the things that make our society function. For those who are afraid of socialism taking over America, it already did a really long time ago. And it's with things that I know. I am adamant that I am for sure you couldn't live without police, socialism, fire department, socialism, roads, socialism, any government, parks, socialism. Federal land, parks, socialism. In your own home, socialism. What do I mean by that? Actually, in your home, it's not even socialism. In your home, it's communism. Somebody proved that point to me back in 2010. And this person, is a teacher of mine, she said, "Do you believe communism is in America?" I was like, "What?" No. She's like, "What if I show you that it does? It exists in America all the time. It's always there." I was like, "Good luck. No, Americans would never go for communism." She's like, where, what part? And she's like, "I can prove it to you that it does exist. Where do you think, if anywhere, where would communism be in America?" And I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, there's nowhere in America is communism. At most socialism, but there's no communism. Now, the concept of communism is you share everything. I think some homes might be more like a monarchy. I see your argument, Mary. However, with your argument, I would say it's a monarchy with a single parent. But how many homes do you know? And that was the whole point, was bringing up the idea of the household is communistic. Your home is a communistic society. And not necessarily a dictatorship either, because if there's a family member in trouble, if your brother, your sister, your mom, your wife, your husband, your father is in trouble financially, are you just going to sit there and be like, "Well, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, go get a job"? How many of you out there as a family would all chip in together to make sure that family member is taken care of? I'd say damn near the vast majority. I can't tell you how many times I hear that same rhetoric all the time. Family first, family first, family first. I'm sorry, I had to take more water. Hold on. Excuse me. I hear it so much. Depends on the family member, right? I'm not getting into that. That's just not something I'm wanting to discuss. Will I discuss it? Sure, but I don't want to. So, but if a family member were in trouble, most families, most households, they'd all chip in. Everybody would do their part. Even if the kids did something that really ultimately was trivial, everyone would do their part to help out the family member. Grandma gets sick, everyone chips in. Well, most people chip in. I can't say that I'm necessarily a part of that, but at the same time, the argument wasn't whether or not there was a communistic society in my home. The argument was, what about the majority of American homes? And a lot of my friends, they have a family member in trouble. They won't hesitate. They'll take care of them. But then I was also able to see what it also meant to me. And that is, with my friends, I don't question it. With my friends that I care about most, if I'm able to help them, there's no hesitation. There's no questioning it. I just help them. Say, here, have some of this. They're like, "Well, you can't afford that." Doesn't matter. We all need it. There was some people here in Arizona. I'm trying to remember the last circumstance this happened, but the last job that I had, I was with a group of guys. We all went down to this city to sell door to door, and the one guy, like, we were all going to go get something to eat, and we're walking up there, and he's like, "You know what, guys? I'm just going back to the hotel room. I'm tired." And I looked at him. I'm like, "Wait, no, you're not. I know you're hungry. What's wrong?" And he kind of pulled me off. Well, I pulled him off to the side. And he's like, dude, I don't want to eat because I don't have any money. I'm like, I don't care. Let's go. He's like, what are you talking about? You're going to eat. Let's go. Because to me, it's not a question. He was a coworker. Now he's a friend of mine. But to me, it's no question. You help out others. You just do. It's very rare that I run into people who don't feel the same way. Do I run into people who don't feel that way? Yes, I do. It happens from time to time, and I stay away from those people. I don't associate myself with them. However, most people I know, if somebody were to be like, look, dude, I really want to do this, but I'm broke. Everyone's chipping in to help out. It's not un-American to help somebody out. So let me go back, though, to how Monopoly ends. We now have a system in place because of the lack of consequences, because of the lack of critical thinking and what's going on, because everyone just says like, oh, okay, well, the people in power, they're saying this, so that must be true. They're not critically thinking about these things. What's going to happen? Well, the game of Monopoly depends, or I'm sorry, to win Monopoly, it is solely and exclusively dependent upon everyone else relying on you or the winner, whoever the winner is. It is exclusively about making sure everyone depends on you. Kind of sounds like society right now. Kind of sounds like how the system is. That it's all about this group of people at the top. Sometimes a new person makes it in there. But they make sure everyone else owes them. If you don't believe me, check out Money is Debt. Let me write that down because I didn't bring up the link. Money is Debt. We live in a society that's based strictly off the fact that debt has to keep occurring. So without it, our society collapses. I'm going to try to run for a political office. I'm going to try to do something about it. If it doesn't work out, I might head off to Europe. I might head off back to Japan, to societies, and I'll pick up the language out of necessity. But in societies where they're just like, look, we all need each other. Why aren't we helping each other? Why does an executive need to make 3,000 times as much as the regular worker? Why do they need that much friggin' wealth? They don't. If you want to make 100 times as much, I kind of get it. But you know what? Your wealth isn't because of just you. You aren't the only one that made it happen. The reason why you have your wealth, the reason why you're on top is because of all the people below you who helped you get there. We have to do this together. 100 years ago, our society was in a position where this system worked, and it worked really well, and it helped propel us to where we are today. Where with technology is going, with what we're able to do with systems now, with our understanding of how systems work, with automation, with different jobs becoming automated. Hell, Uber is trying to do everything in their power to get rid of drivers. What are we going to do when we don't have jobs, guys? We have to figure something else out. The system that we have in place cannot continue to sustain itself. Pretty soon, all that wealth is going to funnel up to just a certain few, And one of two things are going to happen. And in no way do I condone what happened to the politicians the other day at the baseball thing. In no way, shape, or form do I condone that. That was awful, atrocious, horrible. That guy needs to be locked up. Well, we know how that turned out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see more of it occurring. We are living in tumultuous times, and we got to do something about it, guys. Got to do something. Something has to happen soon. I hope it does. All right, well, that's going to about wrap it up for this episode of the Cognitive Liberation Front. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you had a great time. Hope that, hope you enjoyed the show. So, all right, I'm going to boogie woogie out of here. You guys have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. An awesome week. The Cognitive Liberation Front will be back on Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. on the West Coast. Guys, have yourself a fantastic, fantastic day. And start thinking for yourselves. Start to critical think, guys. You got this. I trust in you that you can. All right, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.